U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has begun her trip to Asia. China has already threatened to shoot down her plane if it goes to Taiwan. Both U.S. parties agree she should stand up to China. Switzerland agreed it will implement EU sanctions on China if China does invade Taiwan. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has officially announced that Alibaba and 5 other Chinese stocks will be delisted. A runaway Chinese rocket lost control and landed on the Philippine island of Palawan. NASA criticized China for failing to warn people. The Chinese leader called a secret meeting in Beijing. Several major government officials were required to attend. Experts suspect it means the current leader will be re-elected. Finally, the Twitter account, The Great Translation Movement, was frozen for a day before reappearing. What is the movement, and why is it so popular? Let's get into it. Welcome to Sound of Hope News. My name is Daniela Wollensag, and today is August 1st. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has begun her trip to Asia. Many are wondering if she will ignore China's threat and visit Taiwan. The delegation departed from San Francisco to Honolulu on July 30th. On the morning of the 31st, her C-5 transport aircraft, with call sign RHC-104, took off from the Honolulu International Airport. The aircraft escort was rumored to consist of 5 aircrafts. Singapore's Foreign Affairs Ministry confirmed that Pelosi will arrive in Singapore on August 1st for a 2-day visit. In Japan, Ryukyu Shimbun reported that more than 10 military aircraft arrived at the Kadena Air Base in Okinawa on July 31st. These aircraft do not belong to the U.S. military base in Okinawa. Among them, 9 were mid-air tankers KC-135, 2 were U.S. aircraft carrier Greyhound transport planes, and 1 was a USS Tripoli amphibious assault helicopter, MH-60. It's speculated that these aircraft have something to do with Pelosi's planned visit to Taiwan. The planned visit has raised political tensions between the United States and China. The Chinese Communist Party launched verbal attacks and military intimidation as soon as the U.S. began considering a visit to Taiwan. China recently conducted at least 5 military exercises in the South China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and the East China Sea. After Pelosi set off for Asia, the Chinese Air Force spokesman Shen Jingke spoke on July 31st. He claimed that the Chinese Air Force had sent a variety of fighter jets to patrol areas around Taiwan. He stated that the fly-around was to ensure China's sovereignty and the territorial integrity. In addition, on July 30th, the Chinese Army suddenly launched an unannounced combat shooting exercise in the waters off the Pingtan Island, Fujian. Pingtan Island is the closest point from China to Taiwan. China seems to be signaling that it objects Pelosi's visit. In the U.S., lawmakers from both parties chided the Chinese Communist Party's behavior. Members of Congress backed Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. Florida Republican Representative Michael Waltz told Fox News that the Chinese threats are unacceptable. Waltz has served as a Green Beret commander in the U.S. Army Special Forces. He called on President Biden to make it clear that, quote, if Pelosi is harmed in any way during her visit to Taiwan, it will be a declaration of war on the U.S. Switzerland agreed it will implement the European Union sanctions against China if Taiwan is invaded. Recently, China has been stepping up military activity around Taiwan and is pressuring the democratically self-governed island to accept Chinese sovereignty. Taiwan claims only the island's 23 million people can decide their future, and it will defend itself if attacked. The head of the Swiss agency was asked by the Neue Zürcher Zeitung paper if Switzerland would adopt EU sanctions against China. If that happens, they stated the country would adopt any punitive measures the EU launches against China. State Secretariat for Economic Affairs Director Marie-Gabrielle Ineichen-Fleisch said the sanctions in the case of China would be far more drastic than sanctions against Russia because the economic relations are much more important. She stated, quote, therefore, there would probably be greater discussions in the EU and the United States as well as in Switzerland, than were in Russia. But I hope it will never come to that. Switzerland has the oldest policy of military neutrality in the world. It has stayed out of foreign wars since that neutrality was established by the Treaty of Paris in 1815. But it has been part of security cooperation pacts with NATO and the European Union for many years. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February, it joined the EU sanctions against Russian individuals and companies. The US Securities and Exchange Commission has officially announced that Alibaba and 5 other Chinese stocks will be delisted. Alibaba's Nasdaq depository receipts fell 11% as a result. According to the official statement, Alibaba needs to file a waiver application by August 19th to avoid being delisted in the future. In addition to Alibaba, 4 other Chinese companies, Mushroom Street, Porky's Pet, Cheetah Mobile, and Hacking Metal Processing, are also on the potential delisting list. Secretary Chairman Gensler said this week that the U.S. is expected to complete its review of Chinese stocks by this year, and that officials in Beijing must set no restrictions on opening the audit rules, or the U.S. and China will fail to reach an agreement. He also pointed out that the full delisting scheduled for 2024 could be moved up to next year if U.S. lawmakers vote on it. If the U.S. and China fail to reach a consensus, all 270 Chinese companies currently on the U.S. stock market would be delisted. The wreckage of a runaway Chinese rocket crashed just off the Philippine island of Palawan at about 12:45 p.m. Eastern Time on July 30th. It was about 1,400 kilometers south of Taiwan. The U.S. NASA's director criticized China on Twitter for failing to warn or share specific orbital information to the public. China's 23-ton Long March 5B launch vehicle was launched from Hainan Island at 2:22 p.m. local time on July 24th. It was delivering a space module to its space station. After docking, the rocket made an uncontrolled descent into Earth's atmosphere. This is the 3rd time China has been accused of failing to properly dispose of space debris from the rocket stage. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson tweeted on the 30th, "All spacefaring nations should follow established best practices and do their part to share this type of information in advance to allow reliable predictions of potential debris impact risk, especially for heavy lift vehicles like the Long March 5B, which carry a significant risk of loss of life and property. Doing so is critical to the responsible use of space and to ensure the safety of people here on Earth." The Malaysian Space Agency also said it detected the rocket wreckage catching fire as it entered the atmosphere. The Aerospace Corporation, a nonprofit organization near Los Angeles, California, said it was reckless to allow the rocket's entire 22.5-ton main core to re-enter the atmosphere in an uncontrolled manner. The Chinese leader called a secret meeting in Beijing, and experts suspect it is to disclose his successful re-election. Senior officials at the provincial and ministerial levels of the Chinese Communist Party were summoned to hear him speak. He was the only person who spoke at the meeting. The purpose was to welcome the 20th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party. This is the 2nd seminar held by the CCP this year for senior officials at the provincial and ministerial level. Some experts pointed out that it is unusual for the CCP to have 2 seminars within a year. According to media reports, the senior officials summoned this time included principals from all provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities of the Communist Party of China, all central and state government departments, all organizations, major units of the military, all departments of the Central Military Commission, members of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China, and members of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China, and many other senior officials. A Chinese-American expert on China and a current political commentator, Chen Po-kong, noted that all attendees were prohibited from bringing pens and paper into the venue, or to take notes. This was to prevent leaks. The entire venue had no banners. An expert on China in the United States, Shi Shan, states that this event, Xi Jinping summoning senior officials to Beijing, is a signal that he will be re-elected for 5 more years. The influential Twitter account, Great Translation Movement, was suddenly frozen for a day, and then unblocked. On the afternoon of July 28th, Twitter froze the account for violating Twitter's rules. It returned to normal the following afternoon. Twitter did not explain. The Great Translation Movement is a grassroots movement that has emerged on the internet since March this year. It translates speeches on the Chinese internet into other languages and publishes them on platforms outside China's firewall. The campaign has received enthusiastic feedback. In more than 4 months, the account has accumulated nearly 180,000 followers and received extensive attention from all walks of life, inside and outside China. The Chinese Communist Party's official media has defined the Great Translation Movement as a campaign that, quote, deliberately smears China and incites hatred against China. Since the beginning of the Great Translation Movement, it has been constantly attacked by the government. In April this year, the account was also briefly blocked for a day. A core member of the Great Translation Movement, who requested anonymity, gave the details to VOA. They stated, in fact, it was blocked once before, but it was different from freezing. If it was frozen, the account would have disappeared. Though there is no conclusive evidence, he speculated that the abnormality was because of a report by the CCP's Internet Army and Little Pinks. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you saw, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you tomorrow.